Hello, hello. Welcome to today's LinkedIn Live, Michelle Glover, Journey Unlimited. And I'm so excited for this topic of burnout. And let me tell you, as I'm going through the topic of burnout, I'm also going to be teaching myself. So this is going to be really a physician heal thyself LinkedIn Live. So a lot of the things that I'm sharing with you, trust me, I'm telling myself. So, I want to talk about the topic of burnout. And thank you guys so much for joining in. I'm also going to be managing with the LinkedIn just so that I could see your faces, see your comments. So, feel free to put those in the chat because I would love for this, as much as possible, to be an interactive session. I know there's a little bit of a delay on LinkedIn, but again, I'm giving you guys some time to join in to the conversation on burnout. And again, as I mentioned, we're going to work together on this topic because I too can relate to what it feels like to be burnt out. So where did this come from? Last week, I was tired. I mean, exhausted. My body was exhausted. Mentally, I was exhausted. Emotionally, I was exhausted. I was just drained. And I had a project that I was working on. And I said, Michelle, you're not creative right now. This is a space where you need to be creative. You need to get the juices flowing. You need to think outside of the box, but you're too tired to think. Can you take some time off, just a few days, to just rest? And of course you think of, no, I got to do. And then I looked at my calendar. Thank goodness it was Memorial Day week or the week after Memorial Day. And I said, you know what? I can. So I'm going to choose to rest in this moment. And then it so happens that I also had a girls' mountains trip planned that weekend, that following weekend. So the way of the mountains, spending time in the mountains was the perfect day or the perfect way to end the few days of rest. But it had me thinking, how many times are we trying to go up a hill in roller skates with 100-pound weight? Because we're tired, we're burnt out, but we're like, I'm gonna push through. And because of that, we're not as creative. And while we think we're productive, we're not as productive because we're not able to give our all, give our best because we are burnt out. So that made me think, when I'm talking purpose with clients and I'm talking living your passion at work, I've got to address the elephant in the room. That before we get to that space of career exploration, before we go on that journey of brainstorming and finding that sweet spot, we've got to address what you're dealing with right now, which is burnout. And so I love this definition of burnout. It's when you're physically and or emotionally exhausted, depleted, but it is for an extended period of time, and it's due to excessive stress. So I want to differentiate that versus that project that you have that's causing a little bit of angst and stress at the moment, and it's short term, versus long term, and that burnout is prolonged and it's excessive, and it's something that it doesn't have an end date. It's not like the project ends, okay, now you can breathe and now you can get back to your regular flow. It's this ongoing excessiveness in terms of stress. And let's think about that. If you were in that category, or if you've been there, you know that feeling of when you're just drained and you show up not just at work that way, but you show up at home. And are the people at home getting your best self? Chances are they're not. They're getting the leftovers. So the people that you care about the most are getting the leftovers of you. Now, how does that impact how you show up at work? We think, well, if I keep grinding it out, it's all going to come to fruition. It's all going to come together. But if you're in that prolonged state, you're depleted, and again, not giving your best, it creates a sense of you're not being creative because, ooh, this is so good. Because you're just trying to check the box. I'm just trying to get this done. I'm just trying to get this done. I'm just trying to get this done. And if you're in that mindset, are you really being creative? Are you really allowing the flow of energy to pour into what you're doing? And most times, again, the answer is no. And does it impact your attitude, how you show up at work, and maybe a little more cynical at work because you're tired? And because of that, because if it's a negative attitude and you're being cynical and you have negative thoughts and you're sharing that with others, not only is your burnout impacting you, but the attitude and the words that you speak are impacting others. And I want you to think, is that really the employee that I want to be? Do I want to be the coworker, the manager that is causing negative energy in the environment that I'm in? And most times the answer is no. So let's talk about burnout and what it can take for you to move out of that space. Let's get off this hamster wheel and let's say, okay, now let's acknowledge that we're burnt out. Now the question is, what do we do with that space? And if anything that I'm saying is resonating with you, put it in the chat because I would love to hear your feedback as well. So first, we've got to acknowledge the situation that we're in, that we are burnt out. I saw this quote and I really loved it. It says, if all you have to give is 30% and you give 30%, you've given 100%. And what that's meaning is acknowledging where you are and saying, this is all I have in the tank. I'm going to give what I have in the tank. And I'm going to acknowledge that this is what I have. And this right now for me is 100%. Short term, again, this isn't a long-term solution, but this is a short-term solution. Because sometimes what we'll do is we'll beat ourselves up because we're like, this is all I have to give is 30%, but I want to give 100%, but I don't have that right now because I am mentally, physically, emotionally exhausted. So then I'm going to add this negative energy of stress and anxiety because I don't have it. And so because I don't have it, I'm stressed out about it, but I don't have it. And so we've got to stop and say, let me acknowledge where I am right now. Let me acknowledge, and let me not pour negative energy into my current state and say, this is all I have for right now. But then what is it going to take me to get out of this state? What is it going to take for me to get out of the position that I'm in? And so one thing we've got to do is we've got to look at where we are and why we are and where we are, right? So we're going to look in the mirror, and because in the mirror is what we control. It's easy to say, well, because of this is why I'm burnt out, because of this, because of this, because of this, and all of these external factors. But if you have that mindset, it's because of everything around me, you're not taking ownership for your part in the situation. Again, preaching to myself. So I physician heal thyself, so I can relate as well. So not taking ownership for the part that we play, I play, you play in the situation. But also it creates a sense of helplessness if you're thinking of everything else around you versus what you can control. So there are things that you can control in the situation that you're in. And now I want us to take ownership of that and say, yes, I'm exhausted. Yes, I'm burnt out. Yes, I'm tired. Now, what can I do to control where I am? First thing I could do is assess my values, my purpose, and making sure what we are doing is aligned to our values and our purpose. Sometimes we do a lot of things that aren't connected to our whys, not connected to our passion, and we're just checking the box. And because we're just checking the box, it's just adding more stress and negative energy to stuff that doesn't replenish our energy. So we're giving, and we're noticing, hey, that's not pouring back into me. So the question is, what can I let go of that's not aligned to my life values, my purpose? Okay. Ooh, this is so good because this even applies to work, right? So you say, Michelle, I'm doing my job. And sometimes you're doing extra things in your job because, again, stepping on toes here as well. We think that we're the only one that can do it. So because you're not delegating, because you're not giving away tasks that, oh, by the way, isn't aligned to your job and what your responsibilities and what you're supposed to be doing, it's causing anxiety, it's causing stress, and it's taking away energy, but not replenishing it. So take a step back and say, what are all the things that I'm doing in work? And you can also apply that in life and say, what do I, based on my values, my life, my job responsibilities, what do I need to be doing? So I got to keep doing this. What is it that I need to start doing to help me get more organized in my task? And what do I need to let go? What do I need to outsource? What do I need to delegate? But Michelle, I'm the only one who can XYZ. Then there's a great opportunity to cross-train, to train some other people. I'm the only one. Maybe this is an opportunity to outsource and let the experts expert and let them do some of the tasks that you're doing. But it's looking in the mirror and saying, am I the cause of the burnout because I'm taking on too much? If you add something on your already full plate, something's going to spill over, right? So think to yourself, if I add something, what can I let go of? If I've got too much going on, it's not sustainable. But I gotta do. That life, that mentality, that burnout is not sustainable. So again, there may be short-term, which is why I differentiated short-term versus long-term. There may be short-term spikes in workload because of projects, but long-term, it's not sustainable. So you've got to think, what can I get off of my plate? Okay. And then you've got to set boundaries. I was facilitating a group of women leaders during their leadership program. And we talk a lot about boundaries, right? And setting boundaries. Because if you do not set boundaries in work and life, people will set them for you. So we were sharing, I said an hour that I was facilitating this coaching conversation with them, and in an hour, and they said, well, I gotta do. And I said, but what if you just waited? This is your hour to focus on you. This is your hour for your development. What if you just waited an hour to focus on you? And then after this, you go back to your responsibilities. Is it really gonna be that significant? And most times we like to convince ourselves that the answer is yes. And oftentimes the answer is no. So we feel like I've got to do. Are you that person that goes on vacation and takes your laptop and you take your cell phone and you think, well, if I don't do it, no one will? What happens if, people say get hit by a bus, but that's negative. What happens if you win the lottery? And you may be the person that wins the lottery and still shows up at work because you don't want people to know that you won the lottery. No judgment. Or you may be that person that wins the lottery and you're like, I'm out of here. If you were to be that person who wins the lottery and like, I'm out of here, trust and believe your responsibilities will get picked up. We like to think that we're invincible, we're irreplaceable. But I'm sorry for these messages, but we are. And if something were to happen to us, it may be a little bit of an inconvenience, but the ball will not drop. So as much as you can when you're on vacation, the people who you care about that need you, and they need you present. And that also allows you to recharge and replenish your own battery. So think setting boundaries. What are some boundaries that I need to set so that way I can really not overwhelm myself at work or even at home? And then how do I hold people accountable to them? So, and hold myself accountable to the boundaries that I set. So one thing I like to do is write things down. I had one of the coaches in the group that I'm in, she's an amazing coach as well. And we are coaching these women leaders. And it's so funny. She is in the UK, so we are balancing different time zones. So when I send the emails late in the US time, but for them, it's even later. And when I say late, like late afternoon, when I send it to her, I get this email that comes back that basically says, thank you for the email, but this is out of my working hours and I want to respect your time. I want you to respect mine. And these are the boundaries that I'm setting. And thank you, but I'm not going to answer this until I get back into my working hours. I'm summarizing, of course. And I see it, and every time I get it, it just makes me smile because that's her way of saying, I'm not answering emails after a certain period of time and I will get to it the next day. But it's her way of setting boundaries. Now, you don't have to do that, but you do have to decide what is important to you, kind of going back to your life values, your purpose, your passions, your why, your responsibilities, and how can you protect that and set boundaries for things that maybe plug away for you, that take away from you, which could be causing the burnout. So another thing I want to talk about, this is another good one, is breaks. Taking breaks. So I'm burnt out, I'm overwhelmed, and you're going to tell me, Michelle, to take a break? And I'm going to say yes. What if you gave yourself 10 minutes? You're stressed, you're burdened. And as I mentioned before, while we think we are productive when we have a lot going on and I'm going to multitask and I'm overwhelmed, but I'm going to knock it out, the reality is you're working with less gas in the tank. So you're actually not giving your best. You're actually not creative because you're burdened down. So what if you took 10 minutes just to breathe, 10 minutes to step away? But I don't have time. I can't. It's because you're focusing on what you can't do. Shift your mindset on what you can do. What can I do to take the breaks that I need? What can I do to incorporate a lunchtime? What can I do what if I just walked for 10 minutes, which is what I like to do. Just take a quick walk just to breathe when I'm really burdened down by what I have going on. But it's literally just 10 minutes. And not many professions, if you took 10 minutes to step away, will anyone die? Not many. There are a few, but most times we like to, again, we put in our mind that we can't, so we don't. I want you to put in your mind where I can and then do it. During COVID, really, there was a spike in substance abuse because what we decided to do to take our breaks was to have a glass of wine. So throughout the day, or you even now maybe like every evening, I'm going to have a glass of wine and that's going to be my way of relaxing. And I shared no judgment, but I just want to add to this, right? Is just make you think, is that really giving you the break that you need? Is that really helping with burnout? Or is it putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm? Right. So having that glass of wine that may relax you in the moment, but then you still have to deal with the burnout and the exhaustion that you're feeling every day. So think of, don't put the Band-Aid on the broken arm, but what can I do to take the breaks throughout the day to really set those boundaries so that way it doesn't build up to burnout. Okay. So again, take your breaks. Another thought here. And again, I'm going to go check as I'm talking. I'm going to check the chat just to make sure I'm not missing anything, that I'm not missing if you're putting any comments in there. But I think I'm good. So far, so good. So I'm going to keep rolling with this. But when you take the break, give yourself permission to take the break. So this happened to me before. I was like, Michelle, it's so funny. It was a Saturday. This Saturday, I'm not going to do any work. This Saturday, I'm not going to do anything productive, work related. I'm going to take this time off and really just relax. But then as I'm relaxing, I'm thinking of all the things that I should be doing. Some stuff at home, some stuff at work, but all of this to-dos were clouding my mind. So even though I was tired, even though I was exhausted, even though I mentally said I was going to take a break, my mind didn't. And I had to say to myself, Michelle, give yourself permission to rest. And even God tells us to rest multiple times throughout the Bible. One of my favorite is Matthew 11:28. Read it when you get a chance, where he says, come to me, all who are burdened and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Not just the physical sense of rest, but also the mental sense of worry and frustration. And I gotta do this. I gotta do this. Give all of that to me and I will give you rest. So make in your mind, when you take the break, when you decide to give yourself rest, that you give yourself permission to rest and you turn the other things off. It takes practice, but trust and believe, the more you practice, the more you get in the habit to say, it's okay because I need it. Okay, so take the breaks, give yourself permission to take a break. And also, even throughout the day, you don't have to just wait until the weekend, just throughout the day, 10 minutes. But I don't have 10 minutes. When you have that mindset, you don't. But if you make it up in your mind that you will make it happen, it's amazing how things will work out for you. Okay. And then from a work standpoint, I mean, if you're really going through in your job and you're saying, Michelle, but my manager, my projects or whatever, have the conversation. We oftentimes don't have the conversation with our manager about what we're going through, that we're burdened down because we're afraid that that's going to reflect on performance. But guess what? If you don't perform at the end of the year, it's going to reflect on performance. So how can you have the proactive conversation about, again, start, stop, continue? How can you have an interactive conversation about what you can do, setting realistic deadlines? Okay. And then what you can't do, and then what's the solution for what you can't do? What's the solution? Right? So sometimes here's my problems, here are my problems. Start thinking of solutions. Start thinking about, creative ways to address the situation that you're in, and having that be an interactive dialogue with your manager. And finally, this is the, burnt out. You're realizing, but Michelle, this just maybe not be the environment for me. Then maybe it is time for a change. But before you decide to make the change, make sure you've addressed all the other steps that I've just described, because if you don't practice the boundaries, if you don't take the breaks, if you don't acknowledge the situation you're in, if you don't acknowledge kind of your purpose, your life values, your passion, and making sure the things that you're doing are aligned to that. If you don't do that, you're just going to take the bad habits and move it to a different opportunity, a different role, a different organization. So make sure that you've looked in the mirror first, and then say, are there things that I can do to change the situation, to take control, versus switching to an environment and then saying, Michelle, I'm burnt out again. I'm like, wait, maybe it's you. So there are making sure that you're doing all that I described, so that way you don't take the problems to a new environment. But the reality is, it could be that it is a new environment for you. And if you need coaching, if you need support, please reach out to me, because I'm more than happy to help you on your career journey. So this was a good conversation. Again, I'm going to check the chat just to make sure as I wrap up. If there are any questions about burnout, if there are any questions or comments, you can put those in the LinkedIn live chat, or when this is posted on my social media, including YouTube. I will make sure that I respond to those comments as well, because I don't want to miss any comments that you're talking about with regard to workplace burnout. So let me do a quick check before I wrap up today's LinkedIn Live. But first, I want to thank you all so much for joining in today's LinkedIn Live session on burnout. I hope that we're still friends after today's session, because I know there were some harsh messages, but I really, at the end of the day, want us to be our best self. But we cannot be our best self if we are burdened down. Now, I want to live a life of purpose. I want to have a purpose-driven career. I want to work on my passion. I want to be the best leader I can. You cannot show up at your best self if every day you are burdened down. So we've got to think, what can we do? There again, spikes versus long-term. What can we do that way the long-term doesn't become, and we accept as, the permanent solution? So Michelle Glover, Journey Unlimited, thank you for tuning in for this LinkedIn Live. Stay tuned for more LinkedIn Live sessions. And if you miss it, you can always catch the replay, or you can go to my YouTube channel and subscribe, Journey Unlimited, and catch this and other, not only LinkedIn Live videos, but other videos I have created over the past years, 7 years. So thank you so much, and everyone have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.